How you guys doing today? Well, let's see. I decided to do a question and answer. You know, a lot of people like to give out their opinion on video, and usually get feedback from strangers, or you get your information or influence from events or strangers. So I figured, I'm going to call up my friends on my Facebook channel and say, hey, what do you think? So I did a Q&A questionnaire. It wasn't even a questionnaire, just ask me questions. And I'm still getting them in, and I figured I'll stop around the 10 or 12 that I got. So let's begin. Well, now I have 2 cats. Long story short, I rescued 5 kittens at 2 weeks old, and I had them for a little while. I adopted 2 out. 1 ran away, so I have 2 of them, and their names are Blackie and Missy. And they're the ones I write about on my Facebook channel. They're the ones that wake me up in the morning. They're the ones that torment me. Yeah, they're cats. What do you expect? At the moment, my church, in reality, is a field of dreams. In other words, it's a concept that's turning into a reality. I had to make it so in this way. In 2006, I came up with the concept, and in 2009, I presented the legal work for it to legitimize it, to say, hey, this is a real church. By legal definition, it is, and still is. And I mean, the church has its own bank account, its own register for taking a merchant account, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it's a legitimate church. Now, as a church, as in a building, that's in progress. That's always in progress until it is in its fruition. It's, that's what's going to happen. So in the meantime, I'm making people aware of what the church's paradigm is, what the church goal is, and literally trying also to separate myself from the church, because I am my own individual, and that's what I'm trying to preach to other people, is you are too. Downside is people affiliate church leaders as the direction for the church. I might be the asshole, but the church is what's altruistic. So there you have it. I literally treat the church as a third person. It's, it's something I believe in, but it's not a paradigm that I am fully enveloped. I mean, it's something that it's good for everybody, I feel, and for the most part, and the people I surround myself with agree, and they're as diverse as I want my church to be. So if there's a deadline or when it's going to happen, well, it all depends. And bottom line is, it's about funding. It's about getting money for land and for the buildings. So that's about it there in a nutshell. In the meantime, I'm trying to go off to the different libraries and make use of their meeting rooms and speak publicly. Even if I don't have everyone show up, I bring in my video cameras and I'll be video documentating my lectures. This question is one of the ultimate questions, because I feel as though it's funny, I put out certain videos or social issue videos out a lot, and the people who I expect maybe to give me a pat in the back type of thing or rally with would actually shun me or give me a hard time, and the people who I expect to give a hard time to are actually rallying me, So I actually had a witch group give me a huge thumbs up one time over something that was very controversial, and I had a pagan group literally kick me out. So this is my perception, of course, from my viewpoint. I think paganism is an entire scope of earth belief, ground earth belief, where spirituality is that of deism, which I am a deist. But you're looking at, not necessarily a tree god per se, but everything has an energy, everything is essential. What we're seeing with paganism is basically independent witches embracing the term paganism, but they also bring with them a dichotomy, a good and bad, a right and wrong, a light and dark. So in itself, the people who are embracing, let's say, the dark side of the paganism, which is not really existence, now created dark paganism. You know, you also have the word neo-paganism or new paganism. I think paganism essentially is a very primal belief. It is in its root essence, core, as wild as the wild animals, as lex talionis. I mean, eye for an eye. The best will survive. That's what my viewpoint of what paganism is, because witchcraft would have a particular paradigm. It has its own rules. Paganism, in my opinion, does not. It's elemental. If you think it has rules, go live with the wild, run with the wolves, meet a bear. You tell them the rules. You tell them, and let them tell you what they think, as they probably be ripping you apart and using you for lunch. Paganism, to me, is as primal as the world itself. And I think it scares the shit out of a lot of people, and they want to control it. In essence, be careful what you label yourself, because if you call yourself a pagan and meet a real pagan, you know, you might walk away with a bloody nose. You know, that's the difference, I think, about self-identification. But then again, you also have a blanket or an umbrella term for paganism. But again, too, I did a video about the god Set, and everybody who was partaking in this particular group in honor of Set, the Egyptian god. They were all witches and pagans and what have you. They weren't even following the alignment that they proclaimed to be. And that's the problem when you have a blanket or an umbrella term such as paganism or witchcraft, because it doesn't really fine-tune what you believe. It generalizes who and what you are. Food for thought. But when you hang out with the real pagans, you're dealing with real elemental traditions, or people who make their own in honor of basically the elements. I see nothing wrong with it, and there's nothing bad about it, and there is no bad. It's all encompassing. It is no right, no wrong. It is pagan. It's tricky. Some demographics, you won't find anyone of your belief. Bottom line. If you really want a shock value, you want something to give you perspective, sometimes it's best not to say what you are rather than who you are. I know, I'm Ron French, how you doing? But if in the world of uncommon belief systems, or point simply the occult, go Google on YouTube, for instance, atheism in Oklahoma, and if people think you're an atheist, for instance, you're hugely ostracized to the point where there's open discrimination. And the irony is, a lot of the protection is for religious beliefs, not atheistic beliefs. So there's a catch-22. Only in America where we can say every man's free, but you have to be a second-class citizen until another 100 or 2 years, right? Or women have to fight for the vote. And currently now gays have to go and try and get special recognition and protection as well. But yet we're supposed to be all free and equal. Anyways, without going into the soapbox of equality and what have you, I always go things to, like, if you want to go find a local community, go to WitchVox, go to, or to Google what your paradigm is. If you're a witch, or a pagan, or, if you're a particular witch, Gardnerian, Alexandrian, Dianic, Isis, that kind of thing. You can also generalize your terms, and I hate these terms, but they are useful at times, for other purposes. But metaphysical is a good one. I detest metaphysical shops because they're not spiritually bound in the respect of there's not a respect for many paradigms or any paradigm. They just, want you to smell pretty and have a good atmosphere and meditate, whatever the case may be. But sometimes they become a mecca for other occultists. That's why they do become useful. The problem is the mecca is around the shop, where it should be around the people, and maybe a people having a social group or club, and then go from there. And of course, if you are of a specific tradition, affiliate yourself with people who are of that tradition if they know anyone in your area. There's another place you can go to, and it's large enough to market them or even push them on this video. It's called paganspace.net. And with paganspace.net, it's got about 20 or 30,000 members, and they actually have things regionally done. Even on Facebook, you can go off to different local regions. For instance, if you live in, let's say, Sarasota, Florida, you might find something in Port Charlotte, which is about 10, 15, or 20 miles south of you. Or you might find something further west or north. I mean, so you can, depending on how you're able to travel and how to meet with people, get a compass and create a viability of how to meet with people and how long it will take you to go there. I know some people Christians, for instance, will travel, an hour or two ride, which is about 150 miles just to go to one church. So in that thinking, if you meet with some people once a week or once a month or twice a month, how long of a distance are you willing to travel or go or dedicate to have a social circle? And that's what they're about. It's like a coven by proxy, if you would, if it's eclectic. And if it's not eclectic and you're actually focusing on a particular study group, then you can actually create your own coven, or have a coven created and through a diplomatic process, appoint your high priest or priestess or whoever you need as the leader type of thing. So that's my 2 cents. Is kind of, think like a thesaurus, expand your horizons and explore the world around you via the internet and see who's out there. But if you need someone who, in a pragmatic approach or even non-electronic approach, I would hit the New Age or metaphysical shops and slowly partake in a few things there, once or twice a week, and then market yourself or talk to people who around you are your locals. The problem is, too, if you do it electronically, and you'll see this done on MySpace or Facebook with the groups, is it'll be the same characters in each one. Everybody wants to partake in something or join in with everything and everybody, and for me it's mostly marketing. But I'll belong to several different pagan groups and such that are from the local area, but you'll see the same faces as well. Now, when people meet publicly, that's subjective, and it's truly up to the individual. So you have to, so it's a duality. Put yourself out there on the internet, and also make yourself known in the local community, and see if you guys can meet up somewhere else, like a library or a meeting room type of place. So that's my 2 cents on that one. My detractors provide me my biggest strength. A friend of mine said, nothing motivates man than hatred and revenge. And if you think about the principles or the elemental aspects of men, and that's what we are about. I never seen women wage war, did you? You get my meaning? So, not that it's the motive or the motivation for my church. If people put down my church, to me it's humorous, more so entertaining. Think about it. I have an altruistic viewpoint, and it's inclusive of every belief system, with minor exclusions which are written down, and you have people fighting me tooth and nail on this. They don't have to come. There's a phenomena I've been attacking as of late, and it's called changing content, not the channel. In other words, instead of saying, well, you know, if any one of you wants to go to a Pentecostal church, you'll just simply go. And if you don't, do you protest it? If you don't like to go to McDonald's because you're vegan, do you have a sign in front of McDonald's telling people to go vegan and not to eat at McDonald's? But when the same people come after me, or after my church, and they're saying, hey, you know, we don't like your church, and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the question I ask myself before I get overly involved in their bullshit, and that is, you know, do they protest McDonald's because they don't like the hamburgers? Do they, you know, so on and so forth. So what I do is I look at them for what they are. Idiots. They have no substance. They have no background. They have no depth. They have no intellect. They have nothing. They just have time and energy to bitch and moan, which I endorse, actually, too. Because if you're going to put that much energy into me, you care about what I'm doing, whether you like it or not, and I can harness that energy into something positive by actually using them as a form of sermon. I use them as a form of entertainment, and I use them for everything that they give me. So love me or hate me, I'm still going to win. Love me, I'm in your heart. Hate me, I'm in your head. That's how I view it. And as for me, putting me down, the worst thing I've been called was fat. Ooh. I can lose weight, and I have been losing weight. But when it comes to the people calling me fat, you just can't change stupid. I'm kind of using Ron White's quote, but I enjoy it. It's amazing. And, you know, and it's funny, because when they go out of their way to harass you, you know, I had a guy who harassed me for 4 years. You know, we're not holding hands and best friends now, but I gave him a call, and, you know, after 4 years, because it was a mutual adjutant that wanted to be, you know, it was a long story, long drama issue, but I got tired. I gave that guy a call. And from time to time, we still call and talk to each other. But that's the funny part. There's a post you see on Facebook from time to time. It says, I need new haters because my old ones like me now. Kind of same principle. You know, once you fight with someone for so long, you get to kind of know them. Not only their strategy, but just their character or how they are and what they're about. So after a while, you get to understand your enemy more than you understand your friends. You know, and are they really your enemy, or they're actually, you know, is there a form of, this is their methodology of communication? So anytime someone hates me or hates my organization, you know, love and hate are two sides of a coin. They care, and if they care, make use of it. And that's what I do. So I do find it funny. You know, I've yet to have anybody tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm quite resourceful. Anyway, that's the answer for that question. How do you evolve as a person? How do you grow? How do you expand your horizons? I was born and raised Catholic. I was supposed to be taught this particular blinders on, in the box. This is how I'm supposed to view life through the church. I've even had the church, before there was regulated that by the government, that the church would actually tell people who to vote for, when, you know, what was right, what was wrong, basically also what to do in the bedroom. And I thought that was the most horrid thing in the world, is having some person who is, you know, an abstinent eunuch, if you would, or just an abstinent person telling other people how to live their lives, doing marriage counseling and shit like that. So I would go off and study as much as I can about things, and what I found was, in history, not religious wise but historically speaking, the same paradigm, the same belief system was actually torturing and killing people for being witches and heretics. if they were so bad and evil, why are we doing it now? Now I'm 8 years old thinking like this. So I went off and I grabbed books like Witchcraft and Demonology, and this is how I developed who I am. But basically I studied who the bad people were, and come to find out they weren't really bad. They didn't torture and kill people and ask them 20 questions and tell them to conform or die. It was my own church, my own belief. I actually turned those books around and I showed my CCD teacher going, do we still do this? And why do I have to believe in something with the threat of death if I lived back in history? So my life lesson to you would be, surround yourself with like-minded people, but that doesn't mean religious like-minded, in respect that most churches, I know a particular Christian family, they will only surround themselves with the church members because it's their culture, and it does become a culture. Even with the Catholics, it's a culture. It's not just a religion, it becomes a culture. My attitude is surround yourself with like-minded people. I have more witch and pagan friends. I have a lot of satanic friends too. But the funny part is my witch and pagan are so polarized in dichotomy, but there's a certain level of consciousness that we all share. And the difference is not considered a difference. We see it as a variable. And at that point, you can surround yourself with everybody. And I'm friends with a few Christians too, who, we hug and call each other brother. So, is it because of religious differences that make a difference? No. Find people of a equal or greater consciousness than yourself, of understanding of life around you, and hang. These are the people you're going to be with. And these are the people that make you grow, because not only you know them as a person, but now you know what their background is of how they believe things, and their influence in believing things will expand your horizons, because it comes from a different scope of understanding other than yours. Even though we all reach a parallel level, how we got there is a difference, and that's the difference that helps us grow. My 2 cents. Luciferianism. If it was to go unchallenged, I think Michael Ford would have full reign of the religion itself. In the beginning, I never cared for the guy because he could never speak without saying But that's just being particularly picky about a person, how they communicate or relay a message. In some of my videos I say a lot because I'm pausing between thoughts, and that's the same thing. But the problem is, Luciferianism is a blanket term like paganism or witchcraft. Yes, it is. I'm a deist, and in the left-hand path, if you're an atheist, you're kind of in alignment with the Church of Satan, for instance, where they're promoting atheism with a archetype philosophy. Then you got theistic, so you have traditional, spiritual, and what have you, Satanists, and they actually believe in a devil and all that. Now, if you're a deist, I've seen a deistic viewpoint of Satanism where it's considered Luciferianism. I've seen people who go into the Egyptian god of the morning star. I have seen people who use the morning star biblically. And I've actually had people talk about Lucifer in a theistic manner as well. So it's a scope unto itself. And some traditional Luciferians that I've bumped into would complain that they're put into a left-hand path category or a satanic one because of the name, but it's not their paradigm, it's not their belief, it's not their construct. And the funnier part is, more left-hand path, sure, but they're not Satanists. But then again, the variable of Luciferianism is so vast and great now, is as polluted as Christianity, witchcraft, paganism, Satanism is. So Luciferianism is a broad scope, and you kind of have to choose and pick your poison in a way of what ideology is being presented in the name of Luciferianism that would be appropriate for you. But, you know, as they say, a rose by another color still smells just as sweet. Well, you know, if this paradigm has this particular way labeled Luciferianism, is there any other paradoxical religion doing the same? And you'd be surprised there are. So, for me, that's why I even though I call myself a Satanist, I'm also an occultist. I study many different paradigms, different religions. I take in what's good for me, and I make that a grounding, you know, for myself. But when I see people who hide behind a particular religion or follow it devotedly, now that's fine too. That's their choice. But in a world that's so diverse, sometimes, you know, copy, paste, and rename it is what happens, and they don't see it sometimes. But again, it's their choice. But that's my views on Luciferianism. It's a paradigm of multi-paradigms, no different than the rest of them. Unfortunately, you know, there's nothing specific about Luciferianism that sticks out except for the deistic ones that I bumped into because I'm a deist. So, and that's about it. This can almost go with my church, but this is also about free will. And the problem is, you know, if you ever look at the masses, you can also define masses as sheeple, or people who just go off and do things for the sake of being told what to do. So if they choose to live in ignorance, that's their choice. Respect it. If you want to save somebody, you have to ask your question, do you want to be saved by someone who doesn't believe in what you believe in? So, in a nutshell, respect it. Because if their choice is to jump off a bridge, that's their choice. If their choice is to bury their head in the sand, that's their choice. The question I have for you would be, why would you want to change someone's own free will? And what is your choice? So, in that respect, that's where I come with it. It takes a very, very special person to be in my life. I call it it's like a 90-day probationary period. No matter who you date, I'll be in my best behavior, she'll be in her best behavior, you know, and then so far down the road, you know, someone's going to fart in bed, or, you know, you have the bathroom door open while you're sitting down, or I'm sitting down, or whatever it might be. You have your best behavior because for all the right and wrong reasons. So for me, when it comes to catching tail, I chose not to anymore. I don't date. And I chose it because I'm focused on my church, I'm focused on my education. I restrict my social life fully because of personal discipline, if you would. And also, who do you want to choose to be with? Unfortunately, the people I get along with are all over the world. You know, they're not my neighbors. But I do have a handful of people who are local who I do get along with, and we exchange ideas or whatever the case may be. But when it comes to relationship-wise, it takes a very special person to be with me. You know, I always chose someone who's an occultist. Growing up as a kid, you know, one of my girlfriends from childhood was learning witchcraft at the time. So anything I studied or talked about in my left-hand path paradigm at the time, it wasn't a surprise or shocking to her. She just saw it as something different. And and again, when you're dealing with an equal level of consciousness, there's no good or bad. It's what the other person is doing, and it doesn't affect you directly. You try to understand it better. So when I had a girlfriend or lady friend who was learned to be a witch, I thought it was kind of cool, because she was learning what she wanted to believe in and how she believed it, and when it was a good deal. Now, there was a group of people who I associated with that were like, well, keep a left-hand path, It's kind of like going to Israel and having a rabbi telling the Jewish men to marry the Jewish girls, to keep a Jew, because we're not a belief system, we're a people. And I don't think that. I think, it's all up here. It's your consciousness, it's your understanding, it's what you absorb, it's what you take in, and it's also what you project and what you share. And sometimes it's hard to find someone who is that open or that, how do you call it, very understanding. You need someone who's going to, deal with the likes of me. I'm happy and giddy and funny. I'm really happy, giddy and funny. If I'm pissed off, well, believe me, I'm going to be a pissed off person. I don't shelter, hide, or the fact of my emotions. So for me, I express them. And, I've had past relationships where I had people trying to tell me or stifle me on how I express myself or how I should act or behave. And I realized, you know what, I'm going to be me. And fuck you. Part 2 to the catching tail. So when I go off and I look at relationships, I'm comfortable being alone at the moment. So if someone comes in my life, great. There are some remarkable women I've bumped into that are married and happily married, and I would tell them, I'm like, do you have a sister? Please tell me you have a clone of yourself, because you're one of the few desirable women I want in my life because of your, whether your energy, your personality, whatever it might be. And but it's far and few in between, And so for me, I just try to I keep a distance, and I get to know somebody. I hate to say I'm getting to be old-fashioned now. I've soiled my oats, and and I look forward to the day where I am in harmony with someone. But until then, I'm focused on building my welding career in my welding and audiovisual company, and I'm also focusing on developing other nonprofit organizations to help build the churches, the church, basically. So that's where I'm at. I'm married to my work until then, I guess. Well, my response to J.D. Dunham would be, if you really like Nisha, you'll really like the Church of Satan. Bottom line. I can stop and go to the next question. That's how simple it is. Paganism, the way I see it, is the indigenous belief system of every geographical area before it was taken over by Romans or mainstream belief systems. Their traditions carry on, and then they branched out into another paradigm that became labeled as witchcraft. It's kind of like comparing a wolf to a domestic dog. There's so many different breeds and shapes of dogs, right? You got a pug, you got a German Shepherd, you got a Doberman, you got a Rottweiler, you got a Pit Bull, you got an English Bulldog, you got a Springer Spaniel, you got a Golden Retriever. They're all derivatives of the wolf. So if you look at paganism as the wolf by its origins genetically, and paganism, not paganism, but witchcraft and Wicca would all be your domestic dogs, because it's a polluted and changed, genealogically speaking, but philosophically too, changed from a very primal belief system, geographically and regionally and indigenously, paradigms that called paganism. They're raw. It's essential, and including philosophy to it that's not natural to the order of what paganism believes in. Now, I mean, paganism, if you break it down, I mean, you can look up candle magic, herbalism. You can look up all the other stuff of this nature that's been broken down individually. That's all essentially all paganism. It's just that, again, it evolved into something else called witchcraft in my eyes. So when you see my philosophies popping up, a lot of it's my own paradigm of left-hand path, which would be Ayn Rand, Friedrich Nietzsche, Mark Twain, Shakespeare. Because these philosophies are guidelines, not rules, for my own paradigm. This is what I follow within myself. This is what I exercise. This is what I execute. This is what I do. Where other people read it, nod their head, and don't do anything with it. They don't carry out on it. They don't make it useful for their own development and growth. So my attitude is, if you think that Nietzsche is good for you and you're a pagan, then adopt it. But keep your paganism as a grassroots philosophy for yourself, or belief system for yourself, but evolve yourself as an occultist and read about as many different paradigms as possible and grow from there. That's just how I see it. I don't see it as something you have to indoctrinate to other people. I believe in free will. You have the freedom to evolve, and you have the freedom to be stupid. I try to evolve as much as I can, and I try to stay away from the stupid people because I don't want to go to their level. That's just my 2 points or 2 cents. This question is, to summarize it, satanic panic. I also had a take on this a long time ago, and I remember it now. If you had 5 churches, Lutheran, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventist, Jehovah's Witness, Catholic, each church had their definition of what a Satanist is, or a devil worshiper, or even Satan is. Someone might say one fucks a chicken, the other one kills cats, the other one has sex on an altar of a church, the other one murders puppies, and the other one smears blood on a church's door. And then down the road, a crime happens. By their own paradigm, it's easy to find out who got influenced by being rebellious, by being labeled, by having the devil labeled in such a manner by that church. So in other words, they're not really Satanists. They're Christians who are rebelling against their own belief system by the description of their own belief system. They didn't take it upon themselves to know what Satanism was. They in turn did what the church defined it. And loosely, those people who did anything wrong in the criminal act were done so by the devils that their own church created. That's one. Secondly, there are those out there who say, in the name of this or that, I'm going to do something. And it'll be probably heinous. But when people talk about satanic crime or witchcraft and all this, the funny part is, If you go to the FBI statistics about religious crime, you won't be surprised how much of it is not occultic at all. If the eye offends thee, you pluck it out. And a lot of people get their eyes plucked out, believe it or not. And then it gets dismissed as saying, oh, it's a religious kook. It's watered down, it's washed away. You know, they misunderstood the Bible. They didn't hear the preaching. So it's easily overlooked. But if you belong to something that's not of an us, you become the them, then it's easy to point the finger and say you're doing bad things. But if one person in the name of Daffy Duck goes off and does something bad, everybody will focus on this, but they'll ignore the 20 or 30 counts of, you know, if you read Leviticus, if you have premarital sex before your wedding, you get stoned to death, or if you work on a Sabbath, you are to die. You know, these kind of things. All these extreme measures to follow God's will, and you don't hear about the people who actually do that, thinking that they're doing God's will. So I don't really worry about it. We call it the Satanic Panic, and it was very popular in the 80s and 90s, and it actually took the FBI to show statistically that the propaganda was actually bullshit. The churches would say there's 3 million kids missing, being bred for sacrifice and bred for this, and you know, people are getting pregnant for that, and children are missing, 3 million people are missing. And then the FBI show up and say, well, last year 250,000 people were missing. 80% were from custodial parents or non-custodial parent, meaning you got divorced, you lost custody, you kidnapped the kids anyway. So mom and dad stole their own kid when they lost custody, of course. So when you're talking these numbers and their numbers, integrity is the issue here. So the misconception is this: a church doesn't want to lose its members, so to keep the people close and tight, they fearmonger. They say, watch out for those people. And only that, then you also go off and, like say, they're anti-abortion. Because if you have a family raised in a church, breed, have more family members, you have more church members. And when you have 3 or 4 generations worth, you have 3 or 4 generations of income. There you have it. It's about money. And when you do a us and them, watch out for them, it's old as day. Ask anyone who was a victim of Adolf Hitler. He didn't us and them. He didn't have a devil, he had a Jew. He had homosexuals. He had people who were political rivals. He focused, and a lot of great leaders are only great because they stirred the masses, but they have a commonality. They also have a bad guy. They have the villain. They have a scapegoat. And this scapegoat, this methodology of crowd control, in order to succeed in one thing, you must deplore the other, and you must find something to deplore. So any religious group that points out another religious group and saying they're bad or evil or wicked just shows that they're trying to stir up and muster a congeniality or a conformity within their own structure, and they'll do it out of fear. And there's a devil, there's a bad person. I did a video not too long ago about this where I said, hey, because the occult or Satanism is growing so much, churches, evangelical churches, are no longer using witchcraft or Satanism as the bad guy anymore, because we have no problem standing up and saying, here we are. Tell me more about myself, and I'll tell you you're a liar. So they'll hit groups that don't speak out, like the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, or the Illuminati, the infamous and mysterious Illuminati. Watch out. And when you have people now, those are the new devils. They're the new scapegoat. It's no different than Hitler pointing out the Jew. That's what the churches do. They've been doing it for centuries, and great leaders follow suit of success. In 10 minutes or less. It was funny because I grew up Catholic. I didn't care for the paradigm. I found out that, being Catholic, they tortured and killed many people for not being conformist or not being, heretics or vampires or werewolves or witches. So what makes what made me me was I questioned my own paradigm at a very young age. I had a father who told me I had to believe this because he said so. It was the only way I had to learn, was I had to do it. And I was like, when was the last time you saw a person walk on water? And you really need a strong umbrella for the frogs raining from the heavens. And when was the last time someone fed a crowd of people fish? Show me these events happening now, I'll believe you. Otherwise, it's a storybook like Dr. Seuss. I've been threatened to be kicked out of my house throughout my life for challenging the belief systems I had, or actually challenging the belief systems I would not install into me. Being in Massachusetts, it's our culture to understand the witch trials. So I learned a lot about witchcraft studiously rather than following a paradigm or two. I just want to know historically what they're about, our history in Massachusetts. And I had the biggest fandom of Aleister Crowley, and I still do. But I saw a broader spectrum than a few stated words that he's renowned for. And at that point, I consider myself an occultist. At 13, I read the Satanic Bible. At 15, I read it again more completely and studiously as well. And that's when I embraced its ideology, because I was embracing myself at that point. But I didn't stop there. I didn't go and I read the 12 book step system of how to be a Church of Satan member, let's say. But I went off and I still read different paradigms of interest. I would read different world religions, even of stuff I wouldn't even think to look at. What is about voodoo or hoodoo? Tell me about Santeria or Santa Marta. So for me, to expand my horizons, I'm a Satanist, but I consider myself an occultist too. I'm fortunate I don't have a paradigm that restricts my education. I have a paradigm of paradigms. I use what works for me. I use what benefits me. And as far as I'm concerned, what works for me will work. So that's where I came with my choices. I have my choice and choices. I have my foundation and I have the rest of it. It works for me.